Hi, you are listening to Adventist Radio London, and this is Crazy About Mental Health. My name is Ruth Maxwell.
And I'm Brian Maxwell.
And today on the show, we've got Sam.
Hiya.
Hi, lovely to have you today.
Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you for making me feel welcome.
So before we start, we're going to have some prayer. Brian's going to pray.
Father God, we thank you for the time that we're going to spend with Sam. And Father, we pray that the experience may be of benefit to somebody out there. And that, Father, even as a people, as Christians, may be more welcoming and more supportive to individuals who are experiencing mental health challenges. And Lord, we know that you're a God who cares about our mental well-being. And this is the ultimate reason why we're doing this show. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, so we're going to jump straight in, right? Sam, tell us a little bit about your experiences from the beginning or wherever it is that you want to start in your story.
It depends. Are you asking sort of the experiences that led to my depression?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think...
As much as you're willing to share.
No, I'm willing to, because it's a platform where I think we can be quite safe in saying that sort of the younger generation won't really be listening, you know, children and such, which might be susceptible. So it's difficult to pinpoint a time when it starts. So I'll just let you know the things that led into it and then what led to a diagnosis.
Okay.
So it started when I was younger. My parents split up, but that wasn't really a factor because it was still a very healthy relationship between the two. I still had contact between the two. But at the time, I had a relative who took advantage of the fact that at 7 years old, I was young and then alone a lot as well. Yeah. So that led to sexual abuse that sort of stuck with me, in terms of relationships with other people, self-confidence, that sort of thing. And because at that age, you sort of know what it is, but you don't know how to deal with it. So then there's like that self-blame that's like when you're older and wiser and you can look back and you're like, I should have done that. Why did I react like this? Oh, I'm ashamed of how I reacted like that. But in reality, you're a little kid, you know? But I think because that's something that I didn't shy away from, it didn't really make me depressed. It made me more self-effacing, a lot more critical towards myself, a lot more critical towards other people. And we didn't grow up with any sort of religious structure as such. Our family were a mishmash of religions. Okay. So we grew up with like a, if you're curious, we'll teach you about whatever you want to know about to the best of our abilities, which I think is a good way to go if you're not yourself religious. But it did mean that we didn't have something to fall back on. Right. When it came to something, I'm ashamed of this. I can't tell my dad about this. I can't tell my mum about this. Yeah. There's nobody else to tell. Yeah. And I think that leads into it a lot as well when there's that shame. Even in religious households, you're like, but could I tell this person, could I tell that person, could I tell God himself? Because even though it's a case of God knows and God knows what you're going through, it's, well, if God knows, then I don't need to speak to him about it. And then that doesn't lead to any kind of healing, really. Yeah. And then because of unideal situations growing up with the relative, I just sort of left home very young. I left home when I was 15 and just went straight into full-time work. So I didn't go into further education or anything like that. Went straight into full-time work and trying to support myself. And I think I did well for a while. And then I got into a relationship and it was probably, thinking back, not very well advised. I was still quite young. I was 17. But we went headfirst into it, engagement, the whole lot. But in the end, that sort of, we were together for 3.5 years. We did quite well. And we built a home structure together. And that's when I first started going to church. I went to my grandfather's church, which was a Catholic church. But because myself and my fiancé were already living together, we ended up getting kicked out of that church. Oh, wow. I think that's a big issue in religion is judgment. It's very easy to preach that only God can judge me, we all have to live by each other and love by each other, but there's little things in church that people will look down on you for, will frown at you for. There's a lack of acceptance in churches. Like, you can come into my church if you're like this. If you're like this, if you conform to this, come as you are, but then make sure you change. But it's difficult in ways because I think as we were having a small conversation about beforehand, you don't always know the rules. You don't always know what you're meant to conform to, what you're meant to do. And then
but is it as much about rules or about relationship?
I think it's both, because I think there's unspoken rules in churches regarding relationships, but there are unspoken rules regarding many things. And if you're not privy to them, if you haven't grown up with them, it's very difficult to learn about them through a sympathetic source that's willing to teach you and help you and guide you, as opposed to, oh well, if she's like that, I'm not going to go near her, sort of thing. But we ended up getting kicked out of that church. And then I think I got disillusioned with religion for quite a while. Like I spent a lot of my childhood very open to it, if not knowing a lot about it. And then I went into Catholicism at my grandfather's behest, because he was like, Sam, I want you to go to church. I want you to go to my church. I want you to be a part of this. Yeah. Fine, go for it. I love you, Grampsy. Let's go. Yeah. But I got a bit disillusioned for a while, because Catholicism is very, very strict, very uninclusive, and it was a bit sort of, well, there are so many different people in this world that go by so many different things, that have so many different facets to their personality. Surely if only this type of person is going to go to heaven and the rest of us are damned, then what's the point?
I guess that was the experience in that particular congregation, and maybe that it doesn't mirror all the
certainly not. Certainly not. I'm not saying all Catholicism is this way. That was just my personal experience of it.
In that congregation.
And especially being young as well, I wasn't as wise as I could have been. I was probably not interpreting things quite the way that they were meant to be interpreted. But I think the point is, especially with depression, it's the way that you feel as opposed to the way that things are. Because depression really disrupts the way that you perceive everything. Like somebody can smile at you and you'll think, oh, that's nice, what a nice person, they're smiling at me. And then self-doubt will come in and go, they're smiling because they're laughing at you. And then depression will come in and go, you deserve to be laughed at. And it's difficult, because something as innocuous as a smile can then be, oh, I'm terrible, I'm a horrible person, I've done something, I look awful, I am awful. And it's difficult to bear in mind that depression has now officially been thought of as a disability, which is excellent, because it is disabling. It's in every aspect of what you do, every aspect of what you think, what you eat, what you wear, how you talk to people, how you socialise. Depression is always there. There's no off switch. And people are sympathetic to a point, but it's difficult to remember just how all-encompassing depression is as a disability. But obviously I found the SDA church eventually. Excellent
you found
church.
It. You're just walking along.
There's one. In truth, partially, yes. I was walking along, I was like, I don't know what that building is. And a friend of mine at the time, she was like, oh, well, it's a church. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. It looks nice, okay. And I met a family who were like, no, you're going to come in. I don't care. Come in, come sit with us. There was a program where they spoke to people who were less fortunate, and I ended up going there just to see what it's like. I was a little bit lonely. I was a little bit hard up at the time. And this family were just like, oh, don't worry. We'll look after you. We love you.
Wow.
And because of them, I was like, you know what? After a few months, I said to myself, I respect these people so much. Wow. They have saved my life in so many ways. Wow. I'm going to try it just for them. This sounds different. And then the type of Christianity that was preached, I was just like, I love this. Wow. I love this. And the people are so welcoming. It's like, brilliant. On a high, way up, on a high. Love this. And then obviously depression comes in a little bit, little bit, because you can be going on a high and people think, well, if you're depressed, you can't be happy. And that's not it at all.
Right.
Wow.
Because depression isn't unhappiness. Depression is the lack of feeling. Wow. So you can just
expand on that. That's very profound. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
You can be depressed and not realise it. Like if you wake up in the morning and you find happiness in little things, but for the most part, you can't find anything that interests you. You can't find a book that you care about. You can't find anything on telly that interests you. At work, you're kind of bored all the time. Your kids, they're okay. I love them, but I'm bored. That is and a facet of depression.
Wow.
You don't have to be actively unhappy and hating yourself, because that's a different thing.
Wow.
You can be depressed just by finding nothing in life that excites you. You can feel happy, you can feel little moments of, oh, this is great. But then you go back to, I call it like the greyness of depression.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not necessarily black, it's not necessarily everything is bleak, it's just nothing is great.
Wow.
Nothing is exciting. And because of that, a lot of people don't go see doctors. They're just like, I'm in a funk. I'll come out of it.
Yeah.
And then 6 months along the line, that funk is going to get worse. You're not going to just come out of it. You need somebody to speak to. Sometimes you need medication. And it's not something to be ashamed of, but because of there's this idea, especially in religion, that is down to no person's fault, no congregation's fault, where if you have God in your life, you must rejoice.
Right.
You must be happy. You can't be down, because look at what God has done for you.
Right.
And God has done these wonderful things for you, but you're also a human being.
Okay.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And we're not very good at recognising that as religious peoples, because it's, okay, you're not okay now, but look at God, God is good.
Yeah.
And you know that in your head, you know the fact of it, but to feel it is something different.
Wow.
And it's not
Okay,
something
so
you
that
can tell
head, that
yourself.
intellectual knowledge that God is amazing, when you're going through a depression, that necessarily does not lift you up.
Exactly. Like, you can know it, but to feel it in your heart is something separate. Like, you can sit there and go, I have a home, isn't God good? Look at my healthy children, isn't God good? Look at my good family, isn't God good? But in your heart, you're like, it's not enough. I don't feel right. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. And then you feel guilt for that. And you're like, okay, I'll have to try harder. But you can't force yourself to be content.
Yeah.
That's not something that's possible. You can't work out your happiness muscle like you can your biceps.
That would be fantastic.
It would be fantastic. But it's just, I know scientists, they say there's an imbalance of hormones in your brains and serotonin levels and deficiencies, but I think it's as much to do with how you think of yourself as opposed to the levels in your brain as such. I think that's a contributing factor, but also it's difficult to explain. There's this entire thing of you are what you say you are. Like, if you say to yourself enough that you are worthless, you'll become worthless.
Okay.
And there's a truth in that, because when you feel like something, there's a reason why placebos work. When you believe in something, it then becomes
Your
true.
mind is that powerful.
Yes, precisely. And that's why mental health is such a huge factor, not just depression, anxiety, everything. It's such a huge factor, because your mind can then trick your body into believing it's sick. So your body feels lethargic and you're tired and you don't want to do anything, because your body is thinking, oh no, wait, there's something wrong. I need to shut down. I need to work on this. I need to heal myself. When in reality, there's nothing wrong, and you're trying to go through day-to-day tasks and you're just tired and you don't want to do it. And that's what depression does to you.
Wow.
Well, I think this is a good point for a break. We just need to catch our breath.
This is amazing, because I've heard, so many times you hear the term depression, but how you've broken it down already, I feel like I've literally learned things, and how I view it, and even how you interact with other people, because then you're beginning to think, it's not just, okay, they're always, like you said, they're always going to be sad, always going to be crying. Like, they could be happy at some point.
Of course.
Seriously, this has been amazing so far. We just thank you so much for sharing with us. And we're just going to remind people that this is the Crazy About Mental Health show on the Family Matters show and on Adventist Radio London. Now, if you're interested in any of the topics we've talked about, or you just, want to get in touch, then you can email studio@adventistradio.london, or you can text 82228, the word hope, a space, and then your message. Shall we have a little break here?
Yes.
And then we'll come back.
You are listening to the Family Matters show on Adventist Radio London.
Right, Sam, maybe you can tell us about how you came to appreciate that you actually were depressed, Did you receive a sign or a letter through the post? How did it happen?
Well, I suppose you could say God intervened in some way because I was forced into it by my adopted sister.
Okay.
She'd been with me through an awful lot, through all of these changes in my life and all these things that were going on. And she said to me, Sam, you're not okay. You're not right. And I was in complete denial because I could still get things done.
Right.
There's this entire idea of depression because you're tired all the time. You don't do anything. You don't go to work. You sit in bed. You're lazy. You eat everything or eat nothing.
Yeah.
And it's not that at all. You can still go through life relatively normally and in complete denial because you're forcing yourself.
So your experience of depression was that?
Yes.
Because I suppose for other people it's that extreme.
For other people it's completely different because every single person is different. Some people with depression may display that in eating disorders, or some people with depression may display that with not being able to sleep or sleeping too much. But every single person is different. But because I had daily routines that couldn't be interrupted, I'd force myself into it.
Right.
So when my alarm got off, if I was tired and wanted to stay in bed for 12 hours, I had to get up.
Right.
When it was breakfast time, I had to eat because I had to have energy. And my adopted sister, she came up to me and she goes, no, Sam, I've had enough. I've had enough. I'm done with you. I don't like you right now.
Wow.
Go to the doctors. I'm like, and I didn't understand it because I didn't notice the difference in myself. I thought I was doing really well with trying to carry on, even though I was feeling a bit down and a little bit. But she was like, no, I don't like it. You're not the same. I mean, you cuddle my kids, but you're not happy. You'll come out with me for my birthday, but you're not really there. It's like you're thinking about different things. And I was like, okay, maybe I will see a doctor. Maybe I'll see what's going on. Maybe I'm ill and I don't know it. That was my thought.
Okay.
Because mental health was just like it's not really real. If you can't see it, it's not real. Right. So I went to the doctors and I was like, oh, maybe this, maybe that, maybe this. And I'd done my research classically on the internet and I was like...
Well, as you do.
As you do. And it's the worst thing to do. It's the worst thing to do because for the most part, even doctors who are medically trained do not self-diagnose. You'll never get it right. And if you go onto WebMD, it's always either don't worry about it or you're dying. There's no in between. But I went into the doctor's confident and I was like, I'm pretty sure I have a vitamin B deficiency.
Oh, wow.
That's it. That's why I'm tired. I need more vitamin B. I'm just going to go get some tablets for it. Can you just sign me off so my sister will leave me alone? And my doctor was like, okay, so you're tired. I was like, yeah. And we just started talking. It's like, okay, go fill out this questionnaire.
Right.
And that was a moment when I was like, oh, okay, because it was one of those on a scale of 1 to 5.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
1 being not at all, 5 very much so, how this applies to you.
Yeah.
And it started off with really easy ones, like, okay, on a day-to-day basis, how often do you feel tired? 1 to 5. On a day-to-day basis, how often do you think about hurting yourself? 1 to 5. And these are really easy ones where you're like, oh, well, I don't want to hurt myself. I don't feel suicidal, so I'm fine. And then you get to more difficult ones where it's like, on a scale of 1 to 5, how often do you think on a daily basis that you think less of yourself than you are? Then you belittle yourself on a task when you don't complete something the way you want to. And you're like, well, this could be applicable to loads of people. How many people do something and they're like, I'm not happy with that. I thought I could have done better with that. So then it was just a case of, okay, but this could be anybody. I'm fine. And then I went into the doctors and he goes, you know what, Sam? You rated very high on your depression and even higher on your anxiety.
Wow.
Because it was things like going out in public. Do you feel nervous? Do you feel confident speaking to other people? And we went through it and we broke it down. He was like, well, almost like what you said, Elder Brown, earlier, that your ability to speak is good. I'm a very articulate person, but wanting to speak and the comfort in speaking to other people, even though I know I can articulate myself and I know I can make sense, it's the little voices that go, they don't understand you. You're not saying that right. You didn't say this right. And I was like, you know what? I don't like this. I want you to go see this therapist. I want you to start on a low dose of this medication. And I came out and I phoned my sister and I was like, this isn't right. This isn't right. This isn't me. And she goes, well, Sam, right now it is you. And you need this help. And I want you to go.
But critically, she said right now.
Precisely.
Yeah. So she put it within a time frame.
Yeah. And she sort of had to force me to go to all these different things. And this was before I found the Seventh-day Adventist Church when I was diagnosed. So she was my rock.
Yeah.
So I know God is a rock, but at the time I didn't really have God, so I used my sister.
Yeah.
And she was my absolute rock, and our children, and we got better almost together.
Wow.
Which was wonderful because she herself was suffering with post-traumatic stress disorder, but she had been for many years of her life. It was a constant thing. And she was like, well, we'll do this together then.
Wow.
And we used to go to therapy sessions in the same building and make sure that they were scheduled for the same time frame, so that even though I was alone in the room, I know I wasn't alone in the building.
Yes.
Yeah, I had that support structure there. And so in terms of finding out I had depression, I was in denial that I was depressed until about a year into after being diagnosed with depression.
So that diagnosis wasn't
meant
like
nothing.
the penny didn't drop for a while.
No, it was a case of, okay, I'll do these things, but I'll do these things to humour my doctor, to humour my sister.
Yeah.
Then I had all the faith in my GP. He knew what was best, except from not in this case. He's wrong here. Which, of course, was absolute rubbish. He's gone through so many years of school and he knows what he's talking about. But to me, it was, no, you know what you're talking about, but not in this, not in this.
Yeah.
But after about a year or so, I just was like, you know what? I'm not okay. And that bit was the hardest.
So how did you come to that realization? Describe that, please.
It's not a very nice realisation because at the time I was renting a room because myself and my fiancé, we had broken up. He had decided that he was in love with somebody else, which is a fact of life. It happens. It doesn't necessarily make him a bad person or make me a bad person in that situation. It just happens. But I was just sat in my room, which was the only thing I could afford in a not very nice area with a woman who was an alcoholic, and I was like, I don't want to be here. And I didn't even mean that space. And when I realised I didn't mean that space because I thought I deserved what I had, I was like, you know what, I'm not okay. Because I'm sat here genuinely contemplating how I shouldn't be a part of this world. And that's not right. And that's when I started taking things seriously. I started talking to my doctor a little bit more openly because I was very guarded with him because I didn't believe a lot of what he was saying. He was like, oh no, you need to be on a much higher dose of medication. So I was really interrupting my own recovery, whereas I was in denial. And it took a long process of finding something that worked for me, trying to find more active interests. Because it's so easy to forget that if you love reading, you're like me, you're a bookworm, you do sewing, that sort of thing. You need to be active because otherwise you're not helping your depression. It's called escapism. You're escaping into this world, into this book or whatever, but you're not dealing with your own body and your own issues. You need to go out, you need to be active, you need to get your heart pumping so that your body starts producing those happier endorphins. Because it's easy to think, but I love reading, surely doing what I love will make me feel better. No, it's not. Doing what you love is going to make you feel better whilst you're doing it, but the second you put that book down, you still don't care. You don't care about yourself, you don't care about the world, and that's not healthy. That's not going to help you heal.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a difficult realisation. Yeah.
So did you have like external support at that time when you had that eureka moment? Were you just on your own?
My sister was my support. I mean, I still had my mum and my grandparents and such. They were present, but they weren't really... Not so much that they weren't aware of the problem, they weren't aware of how to deal with the problem. So it didn't much exist. It was like, oh, we know it's there, but it's something unspoken. We don't really talk about it. We'll say, how are you doing when we call, but we expect an answer. We don't actually want to know if you're not okay. We just expect a, how are you?
Fine,
Exactly. And as a result, that becomes your automatic answer.
Response,
So even when a doctor who you're meant to be honest with goes, how are you? Yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm doing all right. And that's not the truth at all.
So what were the steps after that? Because you were already receiving help, as you said. So what was happening after that realization that now made you feel, okay, things seem to be healing?
Yes. What I ended up doing was I ended up quitting my job and changing it because I hated where I was in my job. It was not a very human job. You had to be very dispassionate, and I found that wasn't really helping me. That was helping me more in keeping my depression going and ignoring the world because I didn't have to be a passionate human being at work. So I ended up changing just into housework, nothing special, but it was what was available at the time. And I was like, it was better because I was forced into a smaller group of people that I was working with. And the group of people, they were people, you know, it wasn't people that you had to just sort of ignore or move off or tell to do this. Right. They were the people that you were close with, and you had to be a team in order to get things done. And it forced me into situations I wouldn't necessarily want to be in, into close-knit groups, into a lot more personal, a lot more personal relationships with co-workers. Because co-workers, it's easy to have a co-worker relationship where you're friendly enough, you've got nothing against each other, you know this person has kids, you know this person's married, but you don't know what this person does with their weekends. You don't actually know anything about them.
Favourite chocolate and all that.
All those little things. But I was forced to really get to know these people and to let these people get to know me. Yes. And that helped because I had to learn how to open myself up to the outside world because for reasons that are obvious from childhood, I'd been a very quiet, very closed-off person. I never used to be this much of a chatterbox. I'm ever so sorry. But I never let any of myself or my personality. I was just the quiet girl who smiled and would be happy to help with this, that and the other. And that's the thing that's really important because you'll find an awful lot of depressed people want to help others. They really want to help others. They are so happy to help anybody else with anything at all, because then they don't have to focus on themselves. If they're focusing on your needs, if they're helping you with your problems, with your money issues, with your housing issues, with your whatever, helping you do your garden, anything, they're not having to focus on their own issues, which is where the depression comes in, because it's like, oh no, I don't want to think about me, I'm not good enough, but this person, they're good, I want to help this person. I'm not deserving of my own help.
So did you derive any benefit at all? Because it must meet a need if that helping somebody. Did you get anything in return emotionally, mentally? Did you get some sort of lift?
There's a sense of self-satisfaction of like, I'm doing something that's actually important. But I think on the whole, unless you're at a point in your healing, it's not so good. Like if you're still very deep in depression, you really need to focus on yourself. You really need to be selfish, because if you're focusing on other people, you're ignoring your own needs. You're not eating right. You're not doing the things that you're meant to do. But if you're on that healing process, then it helps, because it helps you with your empathy and your compassion and trying to see the world through different eyes. So it just depends on where you are.
So how were you able to identify where you were, or how did you manage all of everything you've just said? How did you manage that?
It was a very slow process. A lot of the time I was shooting in the dark. I had no idea. Or I was doing things and I didn't know why I was doing things. It's only with self-reflection and looking back that I can think, oh, okay, I was in that place of my healing. But when you're going through it, it's all just a jumble. You don't see the reason as to why you're doing this thing or wanting to do that thing. You're just like, okay, I'm just going to do it. Because if this is making me feel something, I'm going to do that. And trying to go through it that way. It's only with looking back where you're like, oh, there's a reason why I was doing that. I can see why I wanted to do this, and I can see why my doctor and my sister pushed me more into doing this. Because it's outside influences that really make the biggest impact in that situation, because you're not seeing clearly yourself or others. So it's not really easy to see for yourself where you are. When you're in deep stages of depression, it's only with self-reflection and looking back that you can think, okay, I can understand this. And when you're at a point where you're still suffering a little bit with depression, but it's manageable, you're medicated, you're on the level, that you can start thinking actively in terms of your life now and where you need to go now. Well, there's a saying that I read on some kind of medical paper, I can't remember to give them credit, but it was a study on the people who say, I am depressed versus I battle with depression.
Okay.
People who say I am depressed, it's like defeatism. It's almost like they are excusing themselves. Like,
this is my condition. This is who I am.
I'm depressed. I'm depressed. But people who say I am battling with depression, it's like they're saying, but I'm going to win it, but I'm going to do this, but I'm fighting against it.
So it's an active
Exactly,
thing.
and it's completely subconscious. You don't realise you're doing that. Because I realised when I read that, I said to people, I'm depressed. I'm like, but that's a defeatism. And when I started saying to myself, anytime I caught myself thinking, I'm feeling really depressed today, I'll try and change it and be like, I'm going to do better today, and try to change that self-defeatism. Because there's so much subconsciously that goes into it that you don't realise, even when you're fighting it yourself.
Yeah.
It sounds like you did a lot of self-directed reading.
Yes.
Was that intentional, or did somebody point you in that direction?
That was intentional, because my entire coping mechanism is control. The more I know about something, the more that I control it and can look after myself. So that was completely self-directed. Other people may find it better to go emotionally because they're more emotional human beings, but with me it was, I don't want to touch it with emotions because that's not my good point, so I'm going to touch it intellectually. I'm going to look at it this way, I'm going to study it and try and turn it into something that I can hold in my hands almost, and turn around and look at all different angles and think, right, how am I going to get around this?
Wow.
Like it was a problem-solving game almost. Because that was just the way that I could process it in myself. And if it's, my recommendation to anybody would be, no matter how you think that you can process it, whether it sounds completely strange to anybody else, you do that. Because it's almost in your comfort zone, but also out of it. Doing it in a way that feels comfortable to you, but forcing yourself out of it. Yeah. So it's just not so scary.
Amazing. Again, just amazing. We're on the Crazy About Mental Health show. We've got Sam on the show. This has just been absolutely eye-opening for us. So thank you so much for just sharing. And I know for a fact that there'll be somebody listening who has been blessed by what you are sharing with us. Can I just remind you, if you want to get in touch, please email studio@adventistradio.london or text 82228, the word hope, a space, and then your message, and we would just absolutely love to hear from you. Okay, we're going to have a little break and then we'll be back in a moment.
You are listening to the Family Matters show on Adventist Radio London.
Right, Sam. Obviously, you're very reflective and you've shared with us some of your journey. It seems to me you're on the other side.
Yeah.
So tell us how you got here. Walk us through your journey.
I think it's very important to remember that quantifiable things are important in depression.
What does that mean, sorry?
It means things that you can realise for yourself and almost hold on to yourself, things that mean something to you within your situation.
Yeah.
So the things that I've been saying now make sense to some people but not to others because they've had different life experiences, whether because they're of different cultures or class or whatever. Just things that I say are just like, well, that's not really relatable to me. Yes. You need to look at depression through quantifiable things. So it's, with me now, I'm on the other side of it. The things that I hold on to are quantifiable things, are things like my belief in something more, my belief in other people, the people who have helped me, who are around me, who I feel love from. That's what I hold on to because that's what's quantifiable to me.
Okay.
But other people, perhaps they're not quite so visceral. They'll hold on to different things like particular relationships with family members or a particular job or their passion or something like that. But with me on the other side now, the things that I hold on to are probably my family and my church. Yeah. They're very important to me at the time being. I think probably for the foreseeable future, let's be honest. But it's difficult to remember depression isn't ever something that goes away. Yeah. Okay. And there's this thing that everybody at some point in their lives will feel depression in some way, whether it's a depressive episode, whether it's depression for a lifetime. Depression never really goes away and everybody feels some level of depression or anxiety.
Okay, you don't look particularly depressed or anxious right now.
No.
So explain, how did you get here? How did you move it? How long was your journey? How did you end up here?
Well, I'm still on my journey.
Oh, good.
Because I don't feel depressed and anxious right now because I'm very comfortable, with you both. I know you fairly well at this point. You know, I definitely have love in my heart for you, and I definitely feel love in my heart from you too as well. So I'm in a comfortable zone, but I know that if I was in different settings, then it starts to come back, especially the self-effacing part of it. It's always something that you're battling. But now in terms of my life, I'd like to think it's something that I'm on top of. I recognise the behaviours when they come up, which is a big part of it. Being able to see it in yourself, being able to feel it in yourself and know what you need to do in order to counteract it. Like, if I say something and then I think back on it and I'm like, oh, actually, that's not quite, that's not feeling quite right. Or if somebody offers me to do something and I'll immediately say no, it'll be, no, wait a minute.
Right.
That's my depression coming through, immediately going, oh, no, you can't do that. You're not able to do that. And I'll have to sit back and think of it and like, why did I say no? Did I say no because I actually actively don't want to do it? Or did I say no because I feel like I can't do it? And then fighting against those behaviours. That's the little battles of people who are getting over depression. You never really get all the way over it. You're feeling all right in yourself and where you are in day-to-day life, but it'll surprise you in little ways, and you have to learn how to recognise the behaviours and the feelings and counteract them.
Okay. That's good. But did you said you took medication?
Yes.
Are you on medication right now?
Yeah, I'm still medicated. I'm on antidepressant medication, and I am still going through counselling. It's something that I always go through. I probably will for the foreseeable future. I always recommend counselling, whether you are depressed or not. Everybody needs some kind of counselling because you cannot go through life alone. Whether you have God or not, because God is in everybody's hearts and God will look after you, but you still need somebody who is in front of you, who can speak back to you in a way that you'll understand.
So somebody through whom
whom God can work.
Yes,
definitely, because God answers us. He always does. I am a firm believer. God answers prayers, but not always in a way that we understand. And it's important to have somebody whom you can understand, whom you can ask these questions in front of you, who'll be able to explain things through you. They like you said, they are God's workers. They are working. God is working through them to help you, so you need to use these people. It's important for every single person on earth to have somebody, whether it's a counsellor or not, that they can speak through these things with, because everybody needs it, every single person, whether you're going through any kind of mental health issues or not.
Absolutely.
I mean, we talk in mental health about relapse signatures and stuff like that, and you sort of alluded to it, and so it sounds like you're aware and you can almost say, listen, I'm now on the edge, I need to pick myself up.
Yes, definitely.
And that is something you gained through counselling.
Yes, through counselling and definitely through the church as well, because through the church I've gained an awful lot of confidence in religion, a lot of confidence in myself, and through the people around me, because I've met so many heartfelt, wonderful people in different SDA church branches and such, but it's through that I've thought that makes you think about your own humanity, as it were, and start. It's very self-reflective religion, especially when you're first getting into it, because I've only been part of SDA as a religion for the past sort of 2 years. So it makes you very self-reflective. It makes you think about who you are and where you stand, especially in God's eyes, how you want to change this, how you want to be closer. And it forces you almost to see yourself the way that you are rather than the way that you think you are. So it just makes you... It makes you realise more what was an illusion of your own making and what other people see. And what other people see who you are may not be the best kind of person, because depression does these things to you. It makes you self-destructive. But because you see who you are, it is never, never as bad as who you believe yourself to be. Ever. You can be You can be on drugs, you can be whatever, but guaranteed these people who suffer with depression, they think of themselves as much worse even than that. So it's important to realise that, no, you know what, I'm not the worst person, I'm not. And then think, I could be better, and then think of the ways in which you could be better and work towards that. And instead of thinking, I'm bad because of this, think, I could be better because I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So what was your concept of God when you were going through what you went through? Was God as real as a being, as an entity?
Yes and no. He was very much on the back burner. Like, I knew he was there, but I didn't have the faith in him. It was almost like what people call lip service. Like, God is good, but I don't believe it.
Yeah.
You know, giving lip service to him, and I wouldn't pray or anything like that because I thought, what's the point in praying if he's not doing anything? He's there, but he's not doing anything, so why should I pray? But once you start getting over that hump and you start looking back and thinking, well, actually, that time when I had a knife to my wrist and I didn't die, God was there. When this happened and that, God was there. God was there in making my sister go take me to the doctors.
Yes.
God was there. So once you're getting over it and you're starting to look back, it's so much easier to see where God has actually been good and believe it.
Yeah.
And it helps so much in the church having other people who are aware of your struggles, because that was my shortcoming. I didn't make other people aware of what I was going into. It's so much more supportive when other people who are of a belief are circling around you and they're like, no, look at this, believe in this, love this, see how we love you, see how we will do this. And then your belief and faith in God flourishes through these people. But because I very much segregated myself from all of that, I didn't see any of this until after the fact, which was very much my downfall. So I think our duty, so that other people don't go through such horrible times, we know these people that we go to church with, we love these people that we go to church with, these people that we talk to a lot or we don't talk to so much, we need to watch them, because it's so easy to recognise these behaviours in other people once you know what to look for.
Right.
Yes.
And something so simple as pulling somebody aside and just going, have you had a bad week? Are you okay? Would you like to talk to me about it?
Yeah.
Not necessarily putting them aside and thinking, I think there's something wrong with you.
Right.
Just pull them aside and go, do you want to talk? I'm here. Make yourself available.
Right.
Yeah.
Even
yeah.
if you can't fix their problems, just make yourself available, because 9 times out of 10 somebody to talk to is what's needed, and a support structure is what's needed. And then you can rally around this person and you can make them realise, you know what, I'm not alone. Other people have gone through this. It's okay.
But I guess it's difficult on a typical Sabbath, because we put on our Sabbath clothes and our Sabbath smile.
And faces.
And I guess, and we all act. I mean, I've shared before, and I don't mind repeating this. We should be handing out Oscars every Sabbath when people leave church, because they all have put on such a good show.
Yes.
And we all should be winning Best Actor awards.
We are all guilty of this, because I know sometimes I've gone to church on a Sabbath feeling like a train wreck, feeling tired, hating myself, not wanting to be there, just going there because I need to.
Yeah.
And then I'll go there and people be like, oh, hi, how you doing? Yeah, it's been good. All right. It's been a bit of a hard week. I'm good. And then you walk out and you're like, oh, okay, now I can go back and I can take off my shoes and take off my bra and go lay down. We are all so guilty of it, because we want to look our best. We want to feel our best, because it's like, it's Sabbath, it's God's day. We have to, there's this entire thing of put your troubles at the door. This is when we... But your troubles come with you. You can't just put them at the door. And it's important to remember, instead of looking at people going, well, why aren't they worshipping the way they're meant to? Go, why?
Yeah.
Instead of just going, why aren't they doing it? Just be like, no, why?
Yeah.
Let's go talk to them. Let's go see them.
Absolutely.
It's a little bit of extra effort. And it is difficult, because you do almost have to take off some of your own mask, reveal some of your own vulnerability.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's important. It's so important.
It speaks to me of meeting outside the Sabbath hours and getting to actually fellowship with people and being more intimate. Rather
If that's what it takes. Yeah, even a text message, anything like that. You don't necessarily, if you have a busy life is busy, I know that, but if you have a busy life, you don't necessarily have to take time out of your day to go and visit these people. No matter how busy you are, you have 10 seconds for a text message.
You're right.
Just send them a little text,
You're
be like,
right.
oh, I noticed you're a bit down, are you okay? A little phone call, anything just to let people know they have people to talk to.
Yeah.
And then if you do have time to take out of your day, going with this person, maybe praying with them can be so powerful, because then it's almost like they're taking some of the weight off their own shoulders.
Yeah.
They've had somebody to talk to about it, and now they've got somebody to ask to help them with it.
Yeah.
And it's just important to take that little bit of time. I think churches themselves then would flourish because we're helping people's physical needs. I mean, mental health may not be a physical thing, but it is a physical need.
Yeah.
And then you'll find your church growing and growing in love. And there's this thing in churches, and I'm very guilty of this, where you don't know every person in church, or you've been speaking to people for months and months. You don't know their name. Sometimes you know things about these people and they know your name.
Right.
I'm so guilty of this because I'll forget people's names, and then it's 6 months later and I'm too awkward to ask them what their name
It's
is.
very embarrassing. I do
And
the
now,
same.
and now
Then you
it's
ask
like,
them, what's their name? What's their name?
and now it's like, I can't ask this person what their name is. They've known my name for 6 months. I can't ask them. And now it's 2 years down. They're like, I still don't know their names. But we need to because names are important. They're important in
You
getting to know
exist.
somebody. To know that somebody knows your name, it's almost like they know you. When somebody takes time out of their day to go, Ruth, how are you?
Right.
Yeah.
Rather than just, hello, sister.
Yeah.
Just, Ruth, how are you?
Actually,
It's important.
I actually absolutely hate being called brother. I
Yeah?
don't know why. It just annoys something in me. Yeah. Because like you're saying, it's very impersonal.
Yes,
You could be
yes,
anybody.
definitely.
But if you say, hello, Brian, then it's like, okay, I turn around and you've got time for me. Actually matter to you.
You've taken the time out of your life to learn who I am.
Yeah.
And I'm so guilty of this. I really need to do this more myself. So I'm sort
But
of...
that could be a challenge. I mean,
Terrible.
that could be a challenge for us, even for the listeners. You know, like this week, set yourself a challenge. Try and, learn 3 names, or, or speak to people using their name. Or for the month, try that and see if it makes.
And if you're as bad as me, just confess. It's easier. My life is full of anxiety from people coming up to me going, Sam, how are you? How's the little guy? And I know these people, but I don't know their names. So just confess, be like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It's gotten a bit awkward. What's your name? And just take that time, because then you'll be closer to these people because you'll have shared something that's ultimately funny with these people.
Yeah.
And then because of that closeness, because you've taken that effort to learn their names and they've taken that effort to learn yours, there's almost like a kinship there. And even just those small feelings of kinship can help somebody who is suffering with depression, who isn't ready to openly speak about it yet. Just that feeling of love and acceptance and kinship can be what they need.
Yeah.
Are there other things that churches could do, that people in the church can do to make somebody going through depression or maybe any other mental health challenge? Are there things that they could do just to help them feel more loved?
I think openness is a big issue. Like I said, there's this entire misconception of, because God is excellent, we're not allowed to feel bad. We need to be a lot more open in churches. Like, there are people who share testimonies, but they tend to be testimonies about physical disabilities or physical addictions and things like that. You don't hear an awful lot of testimonies about mental health. You don't hear an awful lot of testimonies about people who have had everything but feel awful inside. Like, you look at this person who has never had to struggle, never had to worry where their next meal is coming from, lovely house, lovely family, lovely wife or husband or whatever, but they're depressed, and sometimes depression doesn't make sense, and it doesn't have to make sense, but you never hear these stories. So I think openness in what depression is and how depression can affect people within a church environment, within a religious environment, is very important, because then these people who are sometimes feeling these things and feeling guilty about these things, they have something to put to it. They have somebody else, they've heard somebody else's testimony and seen the acceptance from this to this person and this testimony. And they're like, okay, it's okay.
This is a safe environment for me to share.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm hearing, that we need to make our churches safe.
Exactly.
For people to be open and without being judged.
Definitely. And non-judgmental space where people are able to share and they're never spoken over or belittled or ignored. That's the most important thing, because people can often feel like they're not allowed to share these things because they don't deserve to feel the way that they do. They haven't gone through something terrible in order to feel the way that they do. And that's a misconception that really needs to be gotten rid of. You don't have to go through something terrible in order to feel terrible. Obviously, in my case, things have happened that have attributed to that, but in a lot of cases they haven't. And in a lot of cases there is no abuse or loss of house or anything like that. You know, they've had very regular lives, just they're not feeling themselves, and that's okay, and that's something we need to talk about more in a church.
It would be remiss of us not to inquire, because you've shared and you've been honest. I suppose that the stuff, the trauma that you went through as a child, you have spoken to somebody or are speaking to somebody about it. Yes and no. I mean, especially there's this entire thing of, because you're speaking to a doctor about it, you're like, okay, well, I'm going through it, we're working it out. I don't have to tell people all of my dirty laundry, because it is something personal. You know, there are people that know little areas, there are people that know that I'm struggling with it. People like who I'm very friendly with in church are aware that I'm not entirely there, I'm struggling a little bit, but I'm ultimately okay, and that's fine. You can share or not share as much as you like. You don't have to walk up to somebody and say, hi, I'm Sam, I was abused as a child. You don't have to do that. Most
you know?
people will be like, happy Sabbath, sister, have a good day, and then they're out.
Exactly. They'll be like, I'm gonna go. You can talk to people. If you feel comfortable with a person and you feel like you want to share that, then you can feel free. It's your story, it's your life. You can share and not share as much as you please. You can share everything with God and as much as you like with other people. But it's important to tell people that there's something you're going through, just so that other people can keep an eye on you.
Absolutely.
Love that. Then it brings the whole community responsibility thing. So when we don't see you now, we can call you, Sam, we didn't see you. Are you okay?
Precisely.
But if we don't know, we can call you. We can check on you. We can put our arms around you.
I could miss 4 or 5 weeks of Sabbath and people will be like, oh, that's weird, maybe she's gone off somewhere. And in reality, I'm at home hating myself and not wanting to go to Sabbath because I don't deserve to be there with these lovely people, and people don't know. People need to know. They don't necessarily need to know your story. Just let them know through incrementally, however you want to. Just let them know there's something. There's something that you're working through, just so that they can watch you, because you're not always good at catching yourself. You're not always good at seeing your own triggers. Little things can set you off and you don't even know why. You're not always good at seeing it in yourself. But other people are, because they're outside the problem. It's easy for them to see when you're not yourself. It's easy for them to see when you're looking tired, when you're looking stressed. They may not know the reasons why, but they can see it. And then if you're like that for a while, or if you stop coming, or if they stop hearing from you, stop replying to text messages, whatever, they can be like, okay, there's something wrong. And they can point that out to you, because sometimes you still don't see it yourself when you're in the middle of the problem. And you can be like, oh, okay, there's things I need to do. I need to see my doctor. I need to talk to this person, or go see my sister, or wherever your safe place is. There's things that, okay, I'm aware of it now. I need to work on this. But if you're not aware of it, it's going to get to a point where you don't know what to do anymore. You know, you've almost buried your head in the sand, and now you're in the middle of a mess and you don't know how to get out. So it's important to have people looking out for you, even in little ways.
That's it. Absolutely. And I think for me, taking it away as well, that it's really important when you are with a group of people, say like in a church setting, to be engaged. So it's not just, right, I'm just here, I'm just coming to church. It's actually, you know what, me saying hello to somebody else, or someone saying hello to me, actually is part of what this is about.
Yes.
You know, me smiling at that person, actually saying, you know what, I didn't see you last week. Are you all right? Those little things. So it's not just about ticking a box. Right, I've been to church.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, it's Sabbath. I've got to go to church. Okay,
Right.
I've gone. I said hello. I said happy
That's
Sabbath.
it.
Right, I can go home.
Right. So it's engaging. So those relationships can begin to flourish, and so those safe places can begin to grow as well. So that's what I'm also taking from this.
Definitely.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Sam, for coming onto the show
Been
and
enlightening.
just sharing
Yeah.
your life experience
Thank
with
you
us.
so
We
much.
pray that somebody benefits, and we pray that you too
Yeah.
may grow. I think there's a ministry
Come
for
on
you
now.
here.
I'm telling you.
Yes,
Yeah,
there is.
absolutely.
And you can find maybe start these safe spaces or talk to somebody
Yeah.
for starting these safe spaces, making our
Absolutely.
church safe spaces for people who are
Yeah.
experiencing mental health difficulties.
Yeah.
Very interesting concept, actually. You've got me interested.
Run with it.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Thank you. Well, we're out. This is us.
Yes, we have been Brian and Ruth Maxwell. We are
Lovely.
pgfministries.live. And the show is crazy about mental health for Family Matters on Adventist Radio London. We pray that God may bless you, and if you are experiencing mental health difficulties, talk to somebody, go to your GP, ask for help, and find somebody you can trust to talk to in your church or in your community, and help them support you through this process. We care about your mental health, but ultimately and more importantly, God cares about your mental well-being.